They betrayed me when I needed them most, so why did my success hurt them more than their betrayal hurt me? I learned the hard way that the people who clap the loudest when you fall are usually the ones who can't stand the sight of you standing back up. At 26, I was standing in the rain outside a locked office door, clutching a termination letter signed by the two people I had trusted with my entire future. Mark, 34, and Sarah, 31, weren't just my business partners, they were the people I called family when my own parents weren't around. We had spent 3 years building a software startup from a garage, surviving on instant noodles and the shared dream of changing the industry. I was the lead developer, the one who stayed up until 4 a.m. fixing bugs while they handled the vision and the networking. We shared everything: late-night pizzas, the anxiety of empty bank accounts, and the thrill of our first 1,000 users. But the moment a massive acquisition offer landed on the table, a life-changing sum of money, the vision changed. They used a loophole in our initial, poorly drafted contract to oust me, claiming my technical contributions were no longer necessary for the next phase. They took the payday, the credit, and the company, leaving me with nothing but a month's rent and a bitter taste in my mouth. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you would have taken a bullet for? The betrayal felt like a physical weight in my chest, a coldness that wouldn't go away no matter how many blankets I wrapped myself in. For months, I watched from the sidelines as they posted photos of their new luxury cars and high-rise offices, celebrating a victory they had stolen from my hands. I spent my nights in a dark apartment, oscillating between soul-crushing sadness and a hot, white-hot rage that kept me awake. I remember calling Mark a week after the lockout. I didn't want the money, I wanted an explanation. I wanted him to tell me that it wasn't as cold as it looked. He didn't even pick up. Sarah sent a text through a lawyer telling me to cease and desist all communication. That was the moment I realized that to them, I wasn't a friend or a partner, I was an obstacle they had finally cleared. I sank into a deep depression. My parents, Robert and Linda, watched me wither away from across the country. They didn't understand the tech world, but they understood heartbreak. They offered to let me move back home, but the thought of returning to my childhood bedroom as a failure was more than I could bear. I felt like a ghost haunting the streets of the city I had helped build. But eventually, the rage turned into a different kind of fuel. I realized that if I spent my life waiting for them to apologize, I was essentially giving them permission to keep hurting me. I decided to stop looking at their social media and started looking at the code I had left in my old laptop. I knew the flaws in the system we had built, flaws I had warned them about but they had ignored in their rush to sell. I started over, alone. At 27, I was back in a garage, but this time the fire under me was different. I wasn't building for a shared dream anymore. I was building to prove that the engine of that company hadn't been their networking, but my mind. I worked with a savage kind of discipline, skipping meals and ignoring the world, pouring every ounce of my betrayal into a new architecture that made our old software look like a toy. If you lost everything today, would you try to get it back, or would you build something better from the wreckage? The first year was brutal. While Mark and Sarah were being interviewed for Tech Founders of the Year, I was selling my furniture to pay for server costs. I lived on coffee and spite, but every time I felt like quitting, I would remember the way Mark looked at the floor when he handed me that termination letter. I would remember Sarah's silence. It became my morning prayer. I spent 18 months developing a platform that didn't just fix the bugs of my old company, it anticipated the future of the entire industry. I called it Aegis. It was faster, more secure, and infinitely more scalable. I didn't reach out to big investors. I went straight to the clients they were neglecting in their new, arrogant corporate lifestyle. 2 years later, the next phase Mark and Sarah had bragged about hit a brick wall. Their stolen software was glitching, the clients were leaving, and the market was looking for something new. That something new was me. I launched my second company, and it didn't just compete with them, it made them obsolete within 6 months. The success was intoxicating, but the most surreal part wasn't the money or the awards. It was the shift in the atmosphere. Suddenly, my phone started blowing up with checked-in messages from people who had ghosted me when I was down. Former employees of our old company started applying to work for me, telling stories of how toxic the environment had become under Mark and Sarah's leadership. The most revealing moment came when the company that had acquired them reached out to me. They were looking for a consultant to fix the mess Mark and Sarah had sold them. I walked into that boardroom, the same one I had been barred from years ago, and saw the panic in the eyes of the executives. They had bought a shiny box with nothing inside. I saw them at a tech gala a few months ago. Mark looked 10 years older, his expensive suit hanging off him like a shroud. He was nursing a drink by the bar, looking at the floor exactly like he did that rainy afternoon. Sarah couldn't even meet my eyes. She stayed on the far side of the room, pretending to be engrossed in a conversation with a waiter. I expected to feel a surge of triumph, a told you so moment that would heal my old wounds. I had rehearsed speeches in my head for 2 years. I wanted to tell them how much I had suffered. I wanted to see them beg. But as I stood there in my own tailored suit, surrounded by people who actually respected me, I realized something profound. I didn't hate them anymore. I didn't even care enough to be angry. My success hurt them more than their betrayal ever hurt me because it forced them to look in the mirror. It proved that they were the replaceable ones, not me. Their betrayal had been a temporary setback for me, a painful but necessary pruning that allowed me to grow into something stronger. But my rise was a permanent indictment of their character. They had to live with the knowledge that they threw away a goldmine and a friend for a handful of silver, and they still ended up losing. I learned that the best revenge isn't making someone pay, it's making yourself so successful that their opinion of you no longer carries any weight. You realize that their betrayal wasn't about your lack of worth, it was about their lack of integrity. Is true success about winning, or is it about becoming someone who no longer needs to win against others? I walked past them that night without saying a word, not out of spite, but because I realized we no longer lived in the same world. They were still trapped in the past, clutching their stolen spoils and wondering where it all went wrong. I was moving toward a future they couldn't even imagine. Looking back, I almost want to thank them. If they hadn't betrayed me, I would still be in that garage, working for their vision, never knowing my own strength. They gave me the greatest gift of all, the freedom to discover that I didn't need them. What do you think? Is success the ultimate revenge, or is moving on the real victory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more.